Anna May Wong's heart-shaped face, almond eyes, trend-setting hairstyles, and captivating curves were the ingredients for a unique star power. However, her luminous career was overshadowed by the harsh realities of Hollywood, marked by corruption, racism, and prevailing prejudices of the time. This is the dramatic and often tragic story of Anna May Wong, the beautiful daughter of a Chinese-American laundryman who rose to fame as a major screen siren and an adored fashion icon. Anna May, a third-generation Californian, had her family roots stretch back to the early Chinese immigrants who arrived during the Gold Rush era. Her grandparents settled in California by 1855. From then until the time of her birth in 1905, the Chinese community in California experienced a shift from initial acceptance to attempted exclusion in the 1880s, followed by intense racial hostility by the century's end. These historical backdrops heavily influenced Anna May Wong's life. Despite being a native Californian with deep local roots, she encountered severe social prejudice and discriminatory laws. Anna May Wong's life started on January 3, 1905, at 351 Flower Street, close to Los Angeles' Chinatown. She was named Wong Liu Song, meaning frosted yellow willows, but she was known to most as Anna May. Her father, Wong Sam Sing, affectionately known as Lian Gren, married Li Gon Toi in San Francisco on September 9, 1901, following Chinese marital traditions. They initially lived and worked at the Wong Laundry in Chinatown. Here, Li Gon Toi gave birth to their first child, a daughter named Lu Ying, who went by the name Lulu. Wong Sam Sing was so disheartened by not having a son that he stayed away from home for days. The birth of Anna May was soon followed by the mother and daughters catching measles. This was a terrifying disease at the time, and the situation added to Wong Sam Sing's distress over not having a son. The family eventually moved to 351 Flower Street, an integrated neighborhood just outside Chinatown, where they established the Sam Key Laundry. Wong Sam Sing was part of a generation of Chinese men who endured significant struggles in America. After opportunities in gold mining dwindled and the Transcontinental Railroad was completed, Chinese laborers faced escalating violence from white workers and other racial groups. Initially, Chinese immigrants were spread across the West, working in laundries, restaurants, and farms. However, the surge of anti-Chinese hostility post-Civil War forced Wong Sam Sing and others to head to larger cities, leading to the formation of Chinatowns. These neighborhoods were unique in America, characterized by overcrowded and deteriorating housing within tight confines. The residents, grappling with racism from the dominant society, clung to traditional lifestyles and controlled local properties and businesses. The fact that the Wong family was able to move out of the neighborhood was a sign of relative prosperity. Anna May's family expanded over the years. Following Lulu in 1902 and Anna May in 1905 were 6 more siblings: James, Mary, Frank, Roger, Marietta, and Richard Wong, born between 1907 and 1922. In 1910, the Wong family moved to a neighborhood on Figueroa Street, where they were the only Chinese family, living among mostly Mexican and Eastern European neighbors. This new setting, separated from Chinatown by 2 hills, aided Anna May in adapting to American culture. She attended public school with Lulu, but she endured daily harassment. One boy would stick needles into her, to which she countered by wearing increasingly thicker coats, but the bully responded by showing up with longer needles. Boys pulled her long braids, shoved her off the sidewalk, and hurled racist insults. so the sisters switched to a Presbyterian Chinese school. Although classes were in English, Anna May also attended a Chinese language school in the afternoons and on Saturdays at her parents' insistence. Yet she often skipped her classes to watch theater and visit movie sets. Around this time, U.S. film production was shifting from the East Coast to Los Angeles, close to Wong's neighborhood. Films were frequently shot there, particularly in Chinatown, which studios used as a stand-in for China. Her parents were extremely wary of film. Her mother even feared cameras might capture a piece of the soul. This was a fact that was later partially misquoted as something Anna May said herself. Nonetheless, Wong embraced the new medium, especially when it was blending the customs and language of both her American environment and Chinese heritage. Directors filming in Chinatown needed Chinese faces. This provided Wong with her first film opportunity as an extra in Alla Nazimova's The Red Lantern at age 14. First, she had to gain her father's permissions, and only after ensuring other honorable Chinese male extras would protect her did he consent. The opportunity was thrilling for Anna May. I would worm my way through the crowd and get as close to the cameras as I dared. I'd stare and stare at these glamorous individuals, directors, cameramen, assistants, and actors in grease paint. Wong recounted in a 1926 interview with Time. Over the following 2 years, Wong balanced school with minor roles in various films. She was diagnosed with St. Vitus's dance, causing her to miss months of school and leading to near-emotional collapse. Her father took her to a practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine, which she later credited for her recovery. Then, in 1921, she decided to leave school to dedicate herself to acting. She later told Motion Picture Magazine, "I was so young when I began that I knew I still had youth if I failed. So I was determined to give myself 10 years to succeed as an actress." In 1921, Wong got her first screen credit in Bits of Life, the first anthology film. She played Toy Ling, the wife of Long Chaney's character, in a segment called Hop. She later recalled this role fondly as her only opportunity to play a mother. Her performance landed her a cover photo on the British magazine Picture Show. Soon after, at just 17 years old, Wong took on her first starring role in the early Metro 2-color Technicolor film, The Toll of the Sea. The screenplay, penned by Francis Marion, was a loose adaptation of Madame Butterfly. Variety magazine praised her performance as extraordinarily fine, recognizing her talent early in her career. The film was notable for 2 reasons. It was one of the first to use Technicolor, albeit limited to reds and greens, and the second being Wong's impressive acting skills, which were on full display. The New York Times lauded her performance, saying, "Miss Wong stirs in the spectator all the sympathy her part calls for, and she never repels one by an excess of theatrical feeling. She has a difficult role, a role that is botched 9 times out of 10, but hers is the 10th performance, completely unconscious of the camera, with a fine sense of proportion and remarkable pantomimic accuracy. She should be seen again and often on the screen." Wong continued to work steadily in the early 20s, including roles in films starring Priscilla Dean and Colleen Moore. Wong's acting style was nuanced and natural. She was known for her expressive eyebrows, an intense gaze that seemed to reveal both the best and worst in a person. Her distinct, blunt cut bangs contributed to her perfectly symmetrical face. Despite the variety of exotic roles she had played on the silent screen, which led audiences to expect her to speak with an accent, her voice was refined, cool, and cultured, defying any preconceived notions. It seemed like she was on the verge of stardom, but there were serious hurdles ahead of her. Despite glowing reviews, Hollywood hesitated to cast Wong in leading roles, largely due to her ethnicity, which blinded U.S. filmmakers to her potential as a leading lady. David Schwartz, the chief curator of the Museum of the Moving Image, observed, "She built up a level of stardom in Hollywood, but Hollywood didn't know what to do with her." Wong faced the harsh realities of early 20th century America. Roles for Asian actresses were scarce and often laden with racial stereotypes, typically portraying either submissive butterflies or malevolent dragon ladies, as these tropes were known at the time. Wong found herself relegated to supporting roles that provided exotic atmosphere in the following years, such as playing a concubine in Todd Browning's Drifting in 1923. While Wong's fame was on the rise, film producers limited her to secondary roles. In 1923, still hopeful about her film career, Wong remarked, "Pictures are fine, and I'm getting along all right. But it's not so bad to have the laundry behind you, so you can wait and take good parts and be independent when you're climbing." In spite of climbing, even in her later career, Wong experienced significant pay disparities. In Daughter of the Dragon, where she had top billing, she earned $6,000, while Warner Oland, with just 23 minutes of screen time, received $12,000. Similarly, for Shanghai Express, she was paid $6,000 compared to Marlene Dietrich's $78,000. At 19, Wong secured a role as a cunning Mongol slave in the 1924 Douglas Fairbanks movie, The Thief of Baghdad. Her portrayal of the typical dragon lady, despite its brevity, captured the audience and critics' attention. The film's success, grossing over $2 million, boosted Wong's profile. She also had a widely known affair with the film's director, Todd Browning, which was controversial due to her young age and the interracial nature of their relationship, especially during a time when anti-miscegenation laws were prevalent. Following this role, Wong moved out of her family home into her own apartment. She started embracing a flapper persona, which was very much in vogue at the time and a major part of the rebellious zeitgeist of the 1920s. But while the flapper persona showed her fun side, she was also ready to get serious about business. In March 1924, hoping to produce films on Chinese myths, she launched Anna May Wong Productions. The venture ended abruptly when Wong sued her business partner over dishonest practices, leading to the company's dissolution. Wong's career continued to be constrained by U.S. anti-miscegenation laws, barring her from on-screen romance with non-Asian actors, even if the character was Asian but played by a white actor. "I see no reason why Chinese and English people should not kiss on the screen, even though I prefer not to," she told Time. The lack of Asian leading men in Hollywood further limited her opportunities to lead roles. Setsu Hayakawa was the only prominent Asian male actor in silent films. And without more like him, Wong couldn't be cast as a leading lady. So Wong was often cast in the vamp stereotype, playing indigenous native girls in 2 films in 1924. She portrayed an Eskimo in The Alaskan, filmed in Alaska, and Princess Tiger Lily in Peter Pan, shot by cinematographer James Wong Howe. Peter Pan was more successful, becoming a Christmas season hit. The following year, Wong received critical acclaim for her role as an Oriental vamp in 40 Winks. Despite these positive reviews, she grew increasingly dissatisfied with her roles and sought different paths to success. In early 1925, Wong joined a vaudeville tour with other serial stars, but it was unsuccessful, leading her and the group back to Hollywood. In 1926, Wong was part of a milestone in Hollywood history, as she was placed the first rivet in the construction of Grauman's Chinese Theater, alongside Norma Talmadge. However, she wasn't invited to leave her hand and footprints in cement. That same year, Wong starred in The Silk Bouquet, later retitled The Dragon Horse, in 1927. This film was one of the first U.S. movies with Chinese financial backing, courtesy of San Francisco's Chinese Six Companies. Set in China during the Ming Dynasty, it notably featured Asian actors in Asian roles. In Old San Francisco, directed by Alan Crosland for Warner Brothers, Wong played a gangster's daughter. In Mr. Wu, she lost the lead role due to growing censorship against mixed-race on-screen couples, a pattern repeated in The Crimson City the next year. She was growing tired of these restrictions and wanted to try her luck elsewhere. In 1928, Wong seized the chance to work in Europe, hoping for roles that would typecast her less and allow more freedom, such as interacting openly with white co-stars, or finally having an on-screen romance. During her time in Germany, she befriended Leni Riefenstahl, who was then an actor and hadn't yet turned to film directing. Riefenstahl would later go on to become the official filmmaker of the Third Reich. Germany and China enjoyed cordial relations from 1933 until 1936, when von Ribbentrop's anti-Comintern pact caused Germany to pivot sharply and support Imperial Japan in their war against China, ultimately leading to China declaring war on Germany after Pearl Harbor in 1941. There was no doubt that this tumult put a severe strain on the friendship between both women, who were deeply entwined in the cause of their respective nations during the 1930s and 40s. Wong's close relationships with other European women, including Marlene Dietrich and Cecile Cunningham, led to rumors of lesbian affairs. Back home, this was adversely affecting her reputation. These rumors, especially regarding Dietrich, also caused further distress to her family, who had always been against her acting career, considering it not quite respectable. Throughout Europe, Wong quickly became a star, starring in acclaimed German films like Song and Show Life, and Pavement Butterfly. The New York Times reported on her success in Song, stating that German critics hailed her as a talented actress and a great beauty. In Vienna, Wong impressed audiences with her performance in the operetta Chung-Chi, delivered in fluent German. An Austrian reviewer praised her, saying, "Fräulein Wong had the audience perfectly in her power, carrying off the difficult German-speaking part very successfully." An American gossip columnist in Europe noted Wong's popularity among the elite, calling her the toast of the continent. This admiration seemed partly self-congratulatory, with Europeans keen to show they were more enlightened than what they perceived as silly racist Americans, even as they echoed similarly fetishing views. In Britain, Wong was cast in the play A Circle of Chalk, alongside a young Laurence Olivier, marking her first British stage performance. Criticized for her Californian accent, described as a Yankee squeak, Wong decided to undergo vocal training at Cambridge University. Composer Constant Lambert, fascinated by Wong after seeing her films, attended the play's opening night and later dedicated his 8 poems of Li Po to her. Wong's last silent film, Piccadilly, from 1929, was the first of 5 British films where she played a leading role. Despite Gilda Gray being top billed, Variety noted that Wong outshines the star. Once again, she was not allowed to kiss her white love interest, and a planned kiss scene was removed from the film. Long forgotten, Piccadilly was eventually restored by the British Film Institute. Time magazine's Richard Corliss called it Wong's best film, and The Guardian attributed the film and Wong's performance to the revival of her reputation. Reflecting on her time in Europe, Wong observed, "They were all so wonderful to me. You are admired abroad for your accomplishments and loved for yourself. That made me an individual instead of a symbol of my race." While the extent to which her European films avoided typecasting her is debatable, it's clear that Wong, like Josephine Baker, Nella Larson, and Langston Hughes, found a level of recognition abroad that she never experienced in America. With the rapid rise of talkies, Wong faced the same challenges as any other actor. Could she transition to speaking parts? Wong's first talking film was The Flame of Love, recorded in French, English, and German. Despite praise for her multilingual performance, the film itself didn't fare well with critics. In the 1930s, as American studios sought new European talent, Wong, ironically, caught their attention. She was offered a contract by Paramount Studios in 1930, and she returned to the US, lured by the promise of lead roles. Her European experience and training led to a starring role on Broadway and On the Spot, a drama that ran for 167 performances, and was later adapted into the film Dangerous to Know. When the play's director suggested she use stereotypical Japanese mannerisms for her Chinese character, Wong refused, insisting instead on authentic Chinese style and gestures. Tragically, in November 1930, Wong's mother was fatally hit by a car outside their Figueroa Street home. The family stayed there until 1934, when Wong's father returned to China with her younger siblings, whom Anna May had financially supported through their education. Before leaving, Wong's father expressed his pride in his daughter in an article for Xing Ying, a magazine for overseas Taishanese. Wong then agreed to play another stereotypical role, the vengeful daughter in Daughter of the Dragon, released in 1931. She was enticed by the prospect of working in a Joseph von Sternberg film. This was her final, evil Chinese character, and her only starring role alongside Sesu Hayakawa, the era's other well-known Asian actor. Despite her lead status, Wong's pay was $6,000, less than Hayakawa's $10,000, and Warner Oland's $12,000 for a mere 23-minute appearance. Around this time, Wong started using her growing fame to voice political opinions. In late 1931, she sharply criticized the Mokden incident and Japan's invasion of Manchuria. She also became more vocal about advocating for Chinese American rights and better film roles. In a 1933 Film Weekly interview titled I Protest, Wong expressed her frustration with the negative stereotypes in Daughter of the Dragon, asking, "Why is it that the screen Chinese is always the villain, and so crude a villain, murderous, treacherous, a snake in the grass? We are not like that. How could we be? The civilization that is so many times older than the West?" Her next role was in the now legendary masterpiece, Shanghai Express, again directed by Sternberg. Wong played alongside Marlene Dietrich as a self-sacrificing courtesan. Her intense scenes with Dietrich led to plenty of commentary and fueled rumors about the real nature of their relationship. The idea of two leading Hollywood women having a romantic affair was scandalous in the extreme of the 1930s. While contemporary reviews focused on Dietrich's performance, some film historians now view Wong's performance as overshadowing Dietrich's. On the other hand, the Chinese press gave mixed reviews to Wong's work, particularly in Shanghai Express. One Chinese newspaper headline, "Paramount utilizes Anna May Wong to produce picture to disgrace China." The Chinese press set about criticizing her artistic skills and accusing her of dishonoring the Chinese race. In China, there was a belief that Wong's portrayals perpetuated negative stereotypes of Chinese women. Despite severe criticism from the nationalist government, she received recognition from intellectuals and liberals, such as when Peking University awarded her an honorary doctorate in 1932, a rare honor for an actor. Recognized as a fashion icon in both America and Europe for over a decade, In 1934, Wong was named the world's best-dressed woman by the Mayfair Mannequin Society of New York, and the world's most beautiful Chinese girl by Look magazine in 1938. This was truly her golden era, and she was everything a Hollywood goddess was supposed to be: glamorous and smart, powerful and beautiful. However, despite hitting a career peak in Shanghai Express, Wong's Hollywood career fell back into familiar patterns. She was overlooked for the lead in The Sun Daughter in favor of Helen Hayes, as MGM deemed her too Chinese to play a Chinese. She was also initially cast in The Bitter Tea of General Yen in 1933, but was replaced by Tasha Mori. Disenchanted with Hollywood once more, Wong headed back to Britain and spent nearly 3 years there. During this time, she appeared in 4 films and toured Scotland and Ireland with the vaudeville show, even performing in the King George Silver Jubilee program in 1935. In the film Java Head, she shared an on-screen kiss with her white husband, finally achieving one career milestone she had always wanted. The mid-1930s saw an increase in positive Chinese roles in U.S. films, partly due to the popularity of Pearl Buck's novels, like The Good Earth, and growing American support for nationalist China against Japanese imperialism. Wong returned to the U.S. in June 1935, aiming for the lead role of Olan in MGM's adaptation of The Good Earth. She had expressed interest in this role since the book's publication in 1931, and as early as 1933, Los Angeles newspapers considered her the best choice for the part. However, MGM didn't seriously entertain the idea of casting Wong for the role, and the Chinese government campaigned against it. The Chinese advisor to MGM insisted that her appearances in films often led to critical headlines in China, enough to scare MGM away from casting her and upsetting a huge potential growth market for American movies. Wong was instead offered the part of Lotus, a deceitful character, which she refused, telling MGM's Irving Thalberg, "If you let me play Olan, I will be very glad. But you're asking me, with Chinese blood, to do the only unsympathetic role in the picture, featuring an all-American cast portraying Chinese characters." Despite Pearl Buck's own preference for Chinese actors, an MGM executive stated it was impossible due to the American star system. MGM producer Albert Lewin even commented that Wong did not seem beautiful enough for the part. The role eventually went to Louise Rayner, who won the Best Actress Oscar for it. MGM's decision not to consider Wong for this prominent role is now seen as one of the most blatant examples of casting discrimination in the 1930s. It also cost Anna May a legitimate shot at an Oscar. Interestingly, Wong's sister, Mary Leo Hyung Wong, appeared in the film as the Little Bride. After missing out on The Good Earth, Wong planned a year-long trip to China to visit her father and family in Taishan. She wanted to learn about Chinese theater and perform some Chinese plays for international audiences. Before leaving, she told the San Francisco Chronicle, "For a year I shall study the land of my fathers. Perhaps upon my arrival I shall feel like an outsider. Perhaps instead I shall find my past life assuming a dreamlike quality of unreality." In January 1936, Wong set off on a journey, documenting her experiences in a series of articles for U.S. newspapers, like the New York Herald Tribune, the Los Angeles Examiner, the Los Angeles Times, and Photoplay. During a stop in Tokyo en route to Shanghai, local reporters quizzed her about her love life. Wong quipped, "No, I am wedded to my art." Yet Japanese newspapers humorously misinterpreted this, reporting that she was married to a wealthy Cantonese man named Art. Wong faced continued criticism from the nationalist government and Chinese film circles during her stay in China. She also struggled with communication, having been raised speaking the Taishan dialect rather than Mandarin. Wong remarked that some Chinese dialects sounded as strange to me as Gaelic, a fact that led her to use an interpreter to converse with her own people. After a brief trip to the Philippines, Wong returned to Hong Kong with her family. Arriving in Hong Kong, she was unexpectedly rude to the crowd, which led to a hostile response. Someone shouted, "Down with Huang Leo Song, the stooge that disgraces China. Don't let her go ashore." This further upset Wong, and a commotion ensued before she could finally land in Hong Kong. She retreated to the family village in nearby Taishan for 10 days before gathering the energy to continue her Chinese tour. Back in Hollywood, Wong reflected on her time in China and her Hollywood career, stating, "I'm convinced that I could never play in the Chinese theater. I have no feeling for it. It's a pretty sad situation to be rejected by Chinese because I'm too American, and by American producers because they prefer other races to act Chinese parts." Around this time, the various pressures of fame took a toll on Wong's personal life. This period in her life was marked by depression, anger, and heavy smoking and drinking. To fulfill her contract with Paramount Pictures, Wong starred in several B movies in the late 1930s. Despite critical dismissal, these films offered Wong non-stereotypical roles, praised in the Chinese American press for their positive depictions. These lower-budget films allowed Wong to portray successful, professional Chinese American characters, countering typical U.S. film stereotypes. The Chinese consul in Los Angeles even approved the final scripts of two of these films, Daughter of Shanghai from 1937 and King of Chinatown, released in 1939. In Daughter of Shanghai, Wong played an Asian American lead, in a role adapted to make her the proactive heroine. The script was so tailored for her that it was temporarily named The Anna May Wong Story. The Library of Congress selected the film for preservation in the National Film Registry in 2006, calling it more truly Wong's personal vehicle than any of her other films. Wong herself said, "I like my part in this picture better than any I've had before, because this picture gives the Chinese a break. We have sympathetic parts for a change. To me, that means a great deal." The New York Times gave the film a positive review, noting its competent cast and effective sets elevated it above the typical constraints of its genre. In October 1937, rumors circulated in the press that Wong might marry Philip An, her co-star in King of Chinatown, and a childhood friend who was a Korean-American actor. Wong dismissed these rumors, saying, "It would be like marrying my brother." In King of Chinatown, Wong portrayed a surgeon who forgoes a lucrative promotion to aid the Chinese in their resistance against the ongoing Japanese invasion. The New York Times' Frank Nugent critiqued the film negatively, acknowledging its support for the Chinese cause against Japan, but lamenting that Paramount should have spared us and its cast the necessity of being bothered with such folderol. Wong also worked as a tutor for other actors at Paramount, like Dorothy Lamour, who played a Eurasian character in Disputed Passage. She made several radio appearances, including a 1939 role in Pearl Buck's The Patriot on Orson Welles' The Campbell Playhouse. In 1938, Wong auctioned her movie costumes and donated the proceeds to aid for Chinese refugees, earning recognition from the Chinese Benevolent Association of California. At this time, her father also returned to Los Angeles as the intensity of the war in China began to amplify. She also wrote a preface for the New Chinese Recipes in 1942, one of the first Chinese cookbooks, with its proceeds going to United China Relief. From 1939 to 1942, Wong made few films, focusing instead on supporting the Chinese fight against Japan. and what was now ostensibly a part of World War II, Anna May embraced her heritage more deeply. She filled her home with Chinese antiques and strived to incorporate authentic Chinese elements into her costumes, hair, and makeup. She began studying Mandarin, Cantonese, and the Taishan dialects more seriously. Wong took a trip to Australia in 1939, lasting over 3 months. There, she headlined a vaudeville show called Highlights from Hollywood at the Tivoli Theatre in Melbourne. However, when she returned to California, she was met with another tragedy. On July 25, 1940, Wong's sister Mary sadly lost her life following a battle with depression. In 1941, Wong was seen at several social events at the Mission Inn in Riverside, California. She starred in Bombs Over Burma and Lady from Chungking, both anti-Japanese propaganda films. Wong donated her entire salary from these films to United China Relief. The Lady from Chungking stood out from typical Hollywood war films by portraying Chinese characters as heroes rather than victims needing American rescue. Remarkably, in the film, Chinese-American actors played the Chinese characters, while European Americans portrayed the Japanese villains. The film concludes with Wong's character delivering a speech, envisioning a new China. Both The Hollywood Reporter and Variety praised Wong's performance in The Lady from Chungking, but criticized the film's plot. In 1943, Madame Chiang Kai-shek, the Western-educated First Lady of the Republic of China, gave a speech at the Hollywood Bowl, where many notable white actresses were present. Her speech was met with a rousing ovation by Hollywood's political elite, who were firmly behind the First Lady's nationalist cause. However, one notable figure was missing. Anna May Wong had not been invited, a fact which severely depressed Wong. This exclusion was seen as both a class and career snub. One factor was the differences between Wong's Cantonese-speaking Southern Chinese background and the Mandarin-speaking First Lady. Historian Graham Russell Gow Hodges noted Madame Chiang Kai-shek was known to dislike Hollywood's presentation of Chinese characters, and she let the studio executives know of her displeasure. In her eyes, Anna May stood for the bad old days. Anna May Wong could do all the benefits she wanted for United China Relief, but she had no place in the nationalist ideology. Post-war, Wong found solace in her family, especially her brother Richard, and her oldest, closest friends. Strict marriage laws and societal attitudes had discouraged her from marrying, though she had some long-term relationships. While still pursuing acting roles, opportunities dwindled, and she worked less in her later years. However, she did break new ground by starring in the Gallery of Madame Liu Tsong, the first American TV show with an Asian lead. The defeat of Japan by the Allies in 1945 was far from the end of China's troubles. The ancient nation was now also embroiled in a devastating civil war between the nationalist government and communist rebels, led by Mao Zedong. In 1949, the communist forces defeated the nationalists, and Chiang Kai-shek was forced to flee and establish a new capital for the nationalist government in Taipei, on the island of Taiwan. As a Democrat, Wong supported Adlai Stevenson's campaign in the 1952 presidential election. She also invested in real estate, owning several properties in Hollywood. She converted her San Vicente Boulevard home in Santa Monica into the Moongate Apartments, which she managed until 1956, when she moved in with her brother Richard. In 1949, Wong's father passed away in Los Angeles at 91 years old. That same year, she returned to acting with a minor role in the B-movie Impact. From August to November 1951, Wong starred in the Gallery of Madame Liu Tsong on the Dumont television network, playing a Chinese art dealer involved in detective work and international intrigue. Despite plans for a second season, Dumont canceled the show in 1952, Unfortunately, no copies of the show or its scripts are known to exist. After the series ended, Wong's health started to decline. In late 1953, she suffered an internal hemorrhage attributed to menopause, her continued heavy drinking, and the stress induced by financial woes. In 1956, Wong hosted a significant U.S. documentary about China on the ABC travel series, Bold Journey, narrated by a Chinese American for the first time. It showed footage from her 1936 visit to China. She also made guest appearances on TV series like Adventures in Paradise, The Barbara Stanwyck Show, and The Life and Legend of Wyatt Earp. Anna May Wong was honored with the star at 1708 Vine Street during the 1960 inauguration of the Hollywood Walk of Fame, becoming the first Asian American actress to receive this distinction. She's also one of the 4 figures represented on the Gateway to Hollywood sculpture at Hollywood Boulevard and La Brea Avenue, alongside Dolores Del Rio, Dorothy Dandridge, and Mae West, each representing different cultural backgrounds. In 1960, Wong returned to the big screen in Portrait in Black, starring Lana Turner. Wong was then casted as Madame Liang in the film adaptation of Rodgers and Hammerstein's Flower Drum Song, but her health issues prevented her from taking the role. Sadly, on February 3, 1961, at 56 years old, Anna May Wong passed away from a heart attack in her Santa Monica home, just 2 days after her final TV appearance on The Barbara Stanwyck Show, in an episode titled Dragon by the Tail. Wong's career and persona have left a lasting impact. While Chinese Americans were often seen as perpetually foreign, Wong's blend of Eastern and Western personas upset this notion and established her presence as a Chinese American citizen in an era when laws were discriminatory against Chinese immigration and citizenship. In the years following Wong's death, Shanghai Express remained the only one of her films to consistently attract critical attention in the US. However, in Europe, particularly in England, her films were occasionally showcased at festivals. Wong also held a special place in the hearts of the gay community, who embraced her as a symbol of their own marginalization by mainstream society. While the Chinese nationalist government took great interest, albeit invariably negative, she has been largely forgotten in communist China. However, Wong's impact within the Asian American film community is evident in the Anna May Wong Award of Excellence, presented annually at the Asian American Arts Awards. The United States Mint announced in 2021 that Wong would be featured on the reverse of the quarter dollar as part of the American Women Quarter series. When these quarters entered circulation in 2022, Wong made history as the first Asian American to be depicted on American currency. Wong once suggested her tombstone should read, "She died 1,000 deaths," a nod to the frequent tragic endings of her film characters. However, her final resting place in Angeles Rosedale Cemetery, Los Angeles, is marked with a simpler inscription, "Our beloved mother," in a grave shared with her mother and sister. So that wraps up our look into the fascinating, tragic, and trailblazing life of Anna May Wong. I hope you enjoyed listening. If you would like more rainy tales from the dark side of Tinseltown, feel free to subscribe to the channel. Until next time, it's good night from Hollywood Mysteries. Sweet dreams.